So, without being a little too morbid, I'm just going to do a very short moment of silence for Nick. For those who have not heard, yes, it is true. The actor who portrayed Xander is dead. So, there we are. All right, well, that was uncomfortable, but let us get on to the main review. So, the usual good news, bad news. Good news is, I came in, swear to God, like 90% blind, right? I know it's hard to believe because I'm a big horror fanatic. But I managed to stay away from most reviews of Ready or Not. So I really did not know, like, okay, why the wedding dress? Why the shotgun? A little perplexed. But I was getting ready for Ready or Not 2, or Ready or Not Here I whatever remake. So I was clued into the basics. And did that ruin the film? A little bit. A little bit. So there were a lot of parallels to this in Scream 6. Good and bad. So let me just get the Scream 6 out of the way. Scream 6 has a really excellent opening. And this one is not as good, but the opening sections are probably the strongest. Just setting up what is going to happen with the main story was pretty strong. Unfortunately, I kind of had a clue because Good or Bad, Ready or Not became so popular. So it's kind of alluded to or talked about in other horror films or just generally in movies. So I knew they were going to do something pretty crazy at the end. So I was like, oh, well, there you go. And obviously, since Weaving is back for the sequel, I knew she had to live. So yeah, that kind of undercut the conclusion. So is it worth revisiting for the new people? I'd say so. I think the opening sections were pretty powerful. But the middle section doesn't have too much power. There are some nice twists and turns. However, if you know your main character is going to live, there's not much left, right? Because a lot of this is all on Weaving. So I think they did a good job casting her. And she's very, very good. She's very convincing. Because you wonder, like, wait, wouldn't she, or why didn't she do this? But I do think they set it up well enough, right? And I can't even say too much about anything because if you even give a little bit too much, a lot of the power of the film is gone. But essentially what happens is she's marrying a very, very rich old family. And I guess, and it's ironic because she's not American. If you're American, you can see why this will work, right? Because the way wealth works in America, class, and things like that, this is really believable, right? There are a lot of families that have generational wealth. I mean, again, I'm not going to go too much into Trump, but Trump is a good case, right? His family's rich, he's rich. So you get the basic premise, right? That she joins kind of Trump-like family. So she's a little overwhelmed and kind of awestruck. And that's really critical because a lot of this film is pretty fantastic. I don't mean like it's great, although it is, but that it's like, this seems a little bit too much like a fairy tale. But again, that does happen in America, right? Where if you do run across a genuinely wealthy family, you're going to be like, whoa, you're that family? So that's essentially the premise, that she's about to enter the ranks of a very wealthy family. So she's a little naive about what the quote game they're playing. She just thinks, oh, okay, it's just rich people. They have, weird rituals. Whatever. Just gonna do some weird stuff and then get married. Hence the wedding dress. And there you go. It's believable enough. But again, beyond a certain point, you do kind of wonder, because she is very intelligent, right? The character has some street smarts. So the reactions for early on are pretty good. But after a while, you are kind of like, would this really hold up? And the answer is probably not. Probably not. And again, some things are being played for laughs. Like, this is a very, very funny film. And that brings us to the bad part. It does seem to try to do, which is just a coincidence, I guess, or that it does try to have a kind of very Buffy the Vampire tone, where things go from very serious to very silly, then back to serious, and back to silly. And, well, these are very talented directors and talented writers and a talented cast, but it's not Joss Whedon. So sometimes that works, but sometimes it gets a little frustrating. And it really does. That said, did I laugh a lot of times? Yes. Was I ever scared? No. No. I mean, unless you are totally new to horror films, you'll probably be like, you'll guess most of the twists, which I did. So there you go. So I think, again, Radio Silence is many things, but are they great horror directors? No. If you mean by horror, you're going to be scared? No. But there's another kind of horror, which is about dread. Like, did I feel dread? Not really. This seems more like a horror comedy. And if you judge it from there, yeah, it still holds up. It's pretty great. I did feel a few times that I don't understand why certain people lived. I'm not going to give this away because, again, this is no spoiler review. But there's a moment which was really hilarious where Samara Weaving is being chased. We'll just say that. And she's being chased in a way where you're like, okay, all right, that seems believable. And a guy tries to kill her, right? The chase ends. And you're like, okay, this should be over for that character. And it's like, no, he still lives. And you're like, why? And the answer is, oh, because they want a big, bloody ending. Okay. That's it. And so, yeah, they are sacrificing a lot to get to this silly ending, frankly. And you're like, okay, but was it well done? Yeah, it was well done, but I don't think it had the punch I think the creators of this film were expecting, because I was like left kind of unsatisfied with the ending, frankly. I was like, oh, okay. Well, I mean, you had a kind of fairy tale beginning, so you're going to have a fairy tale ending. So this is really for moderate fans. If you're a moderate fan of horror films, you're going to derive a lot. But if you're like me, horror expert, I've seen tons of horror films, I want to work in the movie industry, you're going to anticipate too many twists. So a lot of the power of the film is gone. So I have to give this 2 scores. 1, coming in totally blind, I was still very impressed. However, knowing too many horror films, I kind of was not as, I couldn't enjoy it as much as I could. So I'll just say, coming in totally fresh, I'm still going to give this a very generous 8 out of 10. However, if you do know what they're up to, yeah, it's not going to be that strong. That said, it was well done, very well done. You can see why a lot of horror fans love it. So if you come in totally blind and you're very new to the horror genre, I think you're going to really, really like this. So those people will probably give this an 8.5. I can see why. However, I've been down the road, right, with Buffy. I watch Buffy all the time, especially Angel. So, yeah, it was fine. The ending was solid. It's believable, but I didn't get that much out of it. So, does it make me curious to see what they're going to do with this sequel? No. And what's funny is I was really pumped to see the sequel, but now knowing too much about the rules in the game, I'm like, oh, well, they're just going to do the same thing, which apparently from the reviews, yeah, they're basically just doing the same thing. So it's like, yeah. Again, I'd also be unclear how to move forward, but I think they could have done something more interesting than just, oh, we're just going to replay the first film, in my humble opinion. But there we are.